What's going on, everybody? As usual, it's your homeboy Eric Short sitting in his man room, just having a great day, hanging out with the fellas. My homeboy Les Miller here on the show. What's up, Les?
All right, E, how's everything going, man?
I'm doing well, bro. We have, as usual, a very, very special guest today. Um, One of the individuals that we used to sit down and watch all the time as younger players and have a lot of respect for. This is going to be Pete Davis, Boys High legend, Michigan State legend. How you doing, Pete?
Hey, good morning, guys. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Les.
All
How's
right, good
everybody feeling
morning.
today?
Yeah,
Good.
doing well. Thanks. Listen,
Yeah.
I just want everybody to know who you are. So tell the general public who Pete Davis is here, bro.
Well, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn. Attended the famous Boys High School,
hmm
where some of the legends of basketball laid groundwork for me to come in and play there. Uh, NBA professionals like Connie Hawkins, Hall of Famers like oh, the list goes on and on. You got legendary high school coaches there like Howie Jones and Frank Mickens. Uh, Lenny Wilkins comes to mind, famous Seattle Supersonics head coach and Hall of Famer. We also had some Hall of Fame baseball and track and field athletes that attended Boys High, but that's the school in the neighborhood that I attended and was very fortunate to play with some great players there.
hmm
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And where did you take your talents to after finishing at Boys High?
I was my senior year. Well, let me go back because there's such a history of basketball at Boys High School. My freshman year and freshman and sophomore years, my freshman year, I did not make the basketball team.
Wow.
Okay, I basically played outside ball and played with a group of young men at St. John's Recreation Center, Lloyd McCory, Ralph Midget, Larry Fogel, some of the
Okay.
names that come to mind.
hmm
Uh, so I played my freshman year with those guys. And then my sophomore year, it was a tremendous battle just to make that team because the year before, Boys High had won, they had set a record with Mel Davis and
Right.
won the city championship. Mel was a high school All-American. You know, everybody recruited Mel. He was a top five. In today's rankings, he would be a top five or even a top three
hmm
recruited high school ball player. So my sophomore year, I was able to secure the 12th spot. I was the 12th man,
Okay.
and the season was a tremendous season. We went 65-0 that season, and
Damn.
again won another city championship under Howie Jones and Mel Davis. Mel then went on to St. John's. My junior year, Frank Mickens took over, and I became the sixth, seventh man. I moved up in the rotation,
hmm
but we had on those teams we had a legendary basketball player, probably one of the best players to play to come out of New York City, Ernie Dowse. Ernie and I were in the same class, and so it was a class with Henry Kinsey, who was a high school All-American, Gus Johnson. Um, boy, the guys that were on that team were just
Wow.
tremendous.
hmm
Um, and then my senior year, it just wound up. It was myself, Lloyd McCory, Ernie Dowse, um, um, and a lot of guys who the names are going to come to me during our broadcast.
hmm
But, just a tremendous group of guys that came together as seniors. We had one freshman point guard who did a hell of a job for us, and took us to the city championship. And we lost in three overtimes to DeWitt Clinton
Mhm.
uh, at Queens College. One of the most, they say, the writers and basketball historians say it was one of the best played high school basketball games ever to come out of New York City public schools.
Right. Was that what there was Shepard playing with Clinton?
Yes, at the time, Steve
Yeah.
Shepard was a freshman, the Bear. He was an All-American. And Steve was a freshman that really, our best game was the game before that, where we played a team from the Bronx again, where they had Isaac DeVore and it was Taft.
Right.
Isaac DeVore was a high school All-American, and a couple of guys who were really, really good at that time. And that was played at Queens College. And really, everyone said, because they went undefeated that year, that was the best. They were the best team in the city that year.
Right.
And we beat them in the semifinals. Clinton played LIC, and they went into the finals. And that set the stage for one of the best high school games ever played in the city of New York. 3 overtimes, and DeWitt Clinton beat us by 1 in 3 overtimes.
And what year was that?
That was 71. So that was the 70 was the 71-70, 71-70 championship, PSAL championship.
Wow. What were we in, like in the 6th grade?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like 5th, 6th grade at the time, man. But we were definitely, paying attention, because oddly enough, that's why I remember Steve Shepard, because I remember, like during that time frame, the battles that New York had, rather Brooklyn had with, great teams in there like Clinton and Taft,
Absolutely.
and so, but to jump past all of that, like I said, like what was the next course of action for your career?
Yeah. So after that season, I was so blessed to be able to be named All New York City first team. Was recruited by some great colleges, programs. University of North Carolina, University of South Carolina, Marquette. When I go into my scrapbook, Eric, it's amazing when I share it with my kids now, because my daughter just played at UConn. She played volleyball at UConn, and my son is a young recruited basketball player now. And I go back and I show them the letters that I got. It's amazing. But but it was recruited early on by those schools I just mentioned. And my senior year, because academically, I was on the cusp academically of matriculating at those schools. And so they lost interest in me because the word was that my grades were kind of, iffy, right? Like I was a C+ student, but at the time you had to have like a 2.7, 2.8 or something like that, almost a 3.0 to get into schools I mentioned. And Michigan State came late in the process. And so I wound up being recruited by Gus Ganakis, who was the head coach before Judd Heathcote at Michigan State. Judd Heathcote, just for the fans that may be listening, was Magic Johnson's head coach.
Right.
Right.
My coach was the coach before Magic Johnson, and Gus came to Boys High School, a really, really understated gentleman. And he came into Frank Mitkin's office and he said, I've been hearing so much about this kid you have, Pete Davis. He said, I'm very interested in Pete. And so I did my research on Michigan State. I looked at the league they played in. They played in the Big Ten. And as a kid growing up, I used to watch the Big Ten religiously on ABC every Saturday. It was going to be on. There was always Purdue with Rick Mount. There was Notre Dame. There was University of Michigan, and all those schools were in the Big Ten. And then I started, Indiana. And so I started looking at Michigan State's their schedule. And I saw these great teams. I said, you know what? I want to play in the Big Ten. And at the time, my older brother was playing in the NBA, my brother Mike Davis. And so in talking with Mike and being around pros, I started to notice that a lot of the pros were coming out of the Big Ten. And so I said, you know what? That's the league I want to play in. Because I want to get prepared for the NBA. And I believe at the time the Big Ten would prepare me. And the roster, I tell you, our schedule was unbelievable. We played everybody. We didn't duck anybody at Michigan. And so I committed to Michigan State. Probably was the best thing I ever done. Although, I played. It was really interesting time at Michigan State also, because when I came in, freshmen couldn't play varsity basketball.
Right.
Okay.
And there was also another rule in there.
No dunking.
That's right. No dunking because of Kareem at the time, Alcindor. But, they tailored the rules of the game. They changed the rules so that they could try to limit Kareem's skill set. Okay. They could never do that. because he was just at the time a 7 foot. He's a 7 foot guard. Okay,
Right.
he could play all 5 positions. All right,
And he didn't have to dunk on you because the sky hook
No.
was
Yeah.
in full effect.
and the other thing too is that because he came out of New York City, just because he was 7 foot, Kareem had handles.
Right.
And, you know, he never really saw it because they just threw him up under the basket because of his size.
Mhm.
But again, he was such a savant, a basketball savant for his time, that he was able to do pretty much everything coming out of Manhattan, Harlem, New York City, Memorial High School. So in any event, so I didn't play my freshman year. I didn't play varsity. I played freshman basketball. We had a great team, and we played against some great freshmen at that time. I remember the great Notre Dame freshman team with Gary Brokaw. Gary came to Michigan State. Notre Dame came to Michigan State and played us. He dropped 40 on us. I was like, wow, And I remember the name, but remember he was a Jersey guy, and so. Then we were in the same class, recruiting class and high school class, but we never got a chance to play against each other because those guys played with Jersey. We played in the city. We played citywide. They had their own leagues, but we knew of each other. And so going into my sophomore year, it always was tough being a kid from New York playing in Michigan because Michigan has a talent pool that's unbelievable in itself. And I could just rattle off some names. The one that comes to mind is George Gervin.
Right.
You had Bubbles Hawkins. You had Campy Russell out of Pontiac, Michigan.
Campy was a bad boy.
Yes, he was.
So you had such talent in the city of Detroit. It reminded me of the talent we had in Brooklyn and in New York City. All right. So coming from, and then you had the kids from Flint, Michigan. Of course, the late Terry Furlow, who was one of my teammates.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Number 1 draft pick of the 76ers with Doc and Daryl Dawkins and Free, World B. Free. Okay.
And who was and up in the Detroit area, Detroit University, Dick Vitale had his roots down in that place. Because there was I don't know specifically, but I know there was a relationship that the Restoration Corporation, Gil Reynolds and George Merton had with Dick Vitale, because we went up there year after year up to St. Ceciliaville, and so that inner city had the same type of the talent as New York City did. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dick, we played against University of Detroit every year.
Okay.
Again, remember, I tell you, we didn't duck anybody. We played UD every year when Vitale was the head coach there, and they had pros. They had real pros. And so we split with them. I remember I think it was my sophomore year, we beat them. Maybe my junior year, they beat us. And my senior year, we beat them. I mean, it was back and forth. And we'd always play at Cobo Hall, where, of course, the legendary Pistons with Dave Bing and Bob Lanier, that group.
Wow.
Jimmy Walker, Dave Bing. So we'd always play at Cobo Hall. And so you could see the basketball talent was just there. And then you had kids, again, because of the relationship you talked about with Gil and Merton, those guys had developed like a pipeline. The kids that, so to speak, in New York, and especially in Brooklyn, they would send those kids to Detroit.
Right.
Larry Fogel's a big example of that. Larry Fogel left New York City because he had a tough time in New York City high school basketball for whatever reasons. And he went and he played 1 year in Detroit, and he still holds the scoring records.
Wow.
In the state of Michigan, in the city of Detroit.
Wow.
I remember we were recruiting Larry, and Gus Kanakis, the head coach, said, "Hey, do you know this guy, Larry Fogel? He's all over the Detroit press. He scored 73 points in 3 quarters in one game."
Wow.
Do you know this guy? He said, "Do you know this guy, Larry Fogel?" I said, "Yeah, man. We grew up right down the street from me." So we had Larry come up. We recruited Larry. Okay.
That's unbelievable, man. And he was way before his time, because he was like the offensive machine of our time, and nobody really knew about him.
There's no,
Yeah.
there's no doubt. We still talk. Larry and I still talk.
Okay.
He
Good.
lives in Rochester, New York with his family. And, we got drafted by the Knicks. We were in the same draft. And Larry, at the time, the Knicks didn't have a first round pick. They took Larry in the second round, but he was actually their first round pick.
Right.
Okay.
And I was the second point guard taken that year in the 1975 NBA draft by the New York Knicks. But anyhow, getting back to my career at Michigan State, sophomore year was a tough year for me because I only played 9 games because I had a groin injury that required surgery. And so I played 9 games. And the thought at that time was, well, Pete, we'll get you that year back because the NCAA rules were you have 5 years to play 4 years of college basketball. And remember, I didn't play my freshman year.
Right.
9 games into the season, I go down with a season-ending groin injury and surgery, out sophomore year. Junior year, 9 games in again, I break my wrist in the first Big Ten game against Ohio State. Wow. I got helicoptered. I went in, I got a steal, and 2 dribbles, I'm in the hoop. I couldn't dunk the ball. So I go up on the right side of the hoop, and I'm getting ready to lay it in with the left, and guy came and undercut me. And I went out of, lost my balance, came down, broke my right wrist. The whole summer, I went home to Brooklyn the whole summer. I played the whole summer with a cast on my wrist, my right wrist, and I developed a left-handed game. I started shooting left-handed jumpers, the whole summer, playing the summer league, played in the citywide or whatever tournaments they were for the summer. I trained the whole summer with a cast on. So I went back my senior year and, of course, fighting to become the starting point guard finally, because, again, the competition was so steep that my sophomore and junior year, which was Mike Robinson, if you do some research on Mike Robinson, he was a kid out of Detroit. He led the Big Ten in scoring 2 of the 3 years. His junior, senior year, he was the leading scorer in the Big Ten. And he was the off guard. So I played with another kid from Detroit who was a tremendous scorer, but he was 5'10". To me, he was Allen Iverson before Allen Iverson.
Right.
But, but a kid out of Detroit, superior athlete, could run, jump, shoot. He could do everything with a basketball. He got drafted late. I think he got drafted in the 8th or 9th round by the Cleveland Cavaliers and didn't make the team. Okay. In today's game, Mike Robinson he'd be a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick. Or he would be a 1st round draft pick.
Easily.
Leading the Big Ten and scoring 2 years in a row.
Right.
And then of course my senior year I had a really good year at Michigan State. We had the best record in Michigan State basketball history before Magic Johnson came in. My senior year, we went 17-9, and we just missed the NCAA tournament. At the time, they were only taking 1 team or 2 teams from the Big Ten. They would take the champ. We didn't have a tournament. You know how they have the regular season. Now they have a tournament that gives everybody a chance. It was none of that. You had the regular season Big Ten champions. Boom, they went to the NCAA. You were lucky enough to get invited. The second teams always got invited to the NIT.
Yeah, because that was and back then that was a strong tournament as well.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. And we missed the NIT. We were right on the cusp. But again, best record in Michigan State history in modern history, up until the Magic Johnson era, which was only 2 seasons after me.
Right.
Magic, actually, there's a funny story that I like to tell, because I moved to Los Angeles back in 1990. And when I moved out here, I bumped into Irv. I call him Irv. I bumped into him at a couple of, pickup games, open runs, open gyms. And he was like, Pete Davis, he says, you're the main reason I went to Michigan State. He said,
wow.
I watch you play. He said, you would touch the ball and the people in Jennison Fieldhouse, the fans would stand on their feet. He said, as soon as you touched it, people would be on their feet. Now, when you're playing in the game, guys, you don't really think about that.
Right.
Your focus is what you got to do, especially at the point guard position. I'm seeing things before they develop. I'm out there and I'm the coach on the floor and I'm making sure everybody's in the right place at the right time. And I know exactly what I want to get out of this possession. I'm not really focusing on the crowd, right? But this is something that Magic Johnson, he told, we were invited, my wife and I were invited to a dinner, an alumni dinner at his home. And he told this story to a house of alumni. He said, Pete Davis, he was introducing everybody at their tables. It's like he got 30 tables of celebrities and ex-All-Americans and football and basketball from, Michigan State. And I mean, you got the list is famous. I mean, James Caan was at our table, the actor that was in The Godfather. He said, I played football at Michigan State. I didn't know that.
Right.
Wow.
So in any event, he's going around by each table and he's talking a little bit about everybody. And he gets to my table, he says, and my table was last. And he says, folks, I really want to share this story because this is the reason I came to Michigan State. It was because of that guy right there. He said, Pete, stand up, Pete Davis. And I stood up and he told the story to a number of alumni and boosters. And that was the first time I had ever heard that story.
Wow. That's awesome.
My wife was like, well, why didn't you tell me that story? I said, I didn't know it,
Right.
So,
I mean, it's weird because what you find out, like you said, you focus on the court because you're the player, but the people in the stands, like as a spectator, you look at, like especially at events at that level, you'd be surprised the people that are there and what they're saying and what impacts them, and I would have figured he would have said, well, after playing, because I played against him, like when he was we're the same year. And I'm like, I had like 38 against his team. I'm like, that wasn't the reason why, but it was because of Pete Davis.
Right.
I was very humbled by Magic saying that about me. And so, my time at Michigan State was really, it was a very, very interesting time in my life because, of course, basketball was all consuming. Of course, the other piece of that was that because I was injured so much, I had to focus on my academic career.
Right.
It really made me become a student, a real student athlete. And my grade point average went up. I remember coming out of, like I was telling you guys earlier, coming out of Boys High and struggling in the classroom because I really wasn't prepared. And then getting, just becoming eligible and staying eligible and going to summer school. And then by the time those injuries started to play a role in my life, I started to focus on my academics.
Right.
And thank God for that, because at the end of the day, I was able to graduate and go on and had a wonderful career, not only in basketball, but a great business career outside of basketball. So it's just a testament of the adversity that we go through as student athletes. We've all gone through it, where, the ball stops at some time. At some point in time in your life, there's going to be an event that, that's going to affect you where you either can't play basketball or it just is a time for you to stop. It's a time to retire, whether it be physical or the opportunity stop or whatever, age comes into play, and you've got to be able to rely on something else. And for that reason, I feel extremely fortunate to have gone through that journey.
But it's funny though, Pete, because just the mere fact of, you had an opportunity to take a step back and to be aware that is, because a lot of us miss it. And then years go by, and it's like, God, I should have, could have, blah, blah, blah. And, actions that happen during the course of our careers, guide us to what we're going to do going forward. And it's funny because for me, it was health. I knew I was never, ever going to make it to the NBA, no matter what, because my health issue, as soon as they found out what was going on in my heart, it was going to be a done deal. So my mindset kind of like changed a little bit. And like you said, it things happen that impact you to start paying attention to other things.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, but for me also, I'm hiding it. I hid it from everyone as well. So it's a bunch of dynamics that happen to a person for whatever reasons, whether it's health, family situations, their educational capabilities, that will make you, at some point in time, it's going to, slap you in the face. Like the buck stops here. this is the last stop for you,
Absolutely.
or there's more stops for you because you're doing well, either or. But I
Right.
think but you have another dynamic that's also something that I would like for you to speak to, and
Mhm.
that is you had an older brother that had skills and was in the league. What was that like for you to be a younger brother of a sibling who was having success? So what kind of pressures were you dealing with that?
Lots of pressure. My brother Mike, they call him. He earned this name in the playground, the Crusher. That was my
Oh,
that was my brother's nickname. Playing in the parks in Brooklyn, New York, and of course New York City. They
Mhm.
called him Mike the Crusher Davis. So Mike must have been crushing people.
yep, yep,
And to
yep.
earn a nickname in the New York City playground and to earn a nickname like that, you had to be some type of player.
Right.
Mm,
So, my brother Mike has always been an inspiration. He's always been a mentor. I give him a lot of credit for, you know, just just dragging his little brother everywhere. He used to take me everywhere. You know, he's 7 years older than me, and I must have been a pain in his butt. You
mm,
know, but everywhere he went, I wanted to go. I'd see him get his keys, and I'd be grabbing my stuff to go. And
nice.
um, I've watched my brother play against some of the best players in the world, and in his era. I've watched him play against Kareem. I watched him play against Earl Monroe and with Earl the Pearl Monroe. Um, I mean, he played on a Baltimore Bullet team that went to the NBA Finals. They lost to Oscar Robertson and Lou in the 71, I think it was 1970 or 71, no, 69-70 NBA championship. And my brother was on that team, and he also got hurt right before the playoffs. And that was the emergence of Fred Carter. But really,
Okay.
that Mike was the one all during the regular season. He was either a starter or the first guard off the bench.
Right. Mhm.
My brother was that year, his rookie year, he was first team All NBA, first team All Rookie team,
Mm,
and in the vote getting for Rookie of the Year, Lou Alcindor, aka Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, won Rookie of the Year, and my brother was second in the voting for
Wow.
NBA
wow.
Rookie of the Year. He was second in the voting.
Mm,
So, and Mike, I tell you, growing up, and I remember watching him play at Madison Square Garden
mm,
in high school championship right before Boys High played Clinton. Eastern District is where my brother went to high school. He went to Eastern District. They played Westinghouse. Eastern District played Westinghouse for the B championship, PSAL B championship. Okay, and of course Boys High played Clinton for the A, PSLA division, right? And it was amazing. It was just amazing to live in the same household and share the
mm,
same bedroom, with the bunk beds and the whole nine.
yeah.
We all used to, the Bedford YMCA was right down the block from us. I mean, I could walk out of my house, walk a half a block, and I would be at the Bedford YMCA. So
Mm,
that was our home court.
Right.
And uh, our mentor and coach of our team at the Bedford YMCA was a guy by the name of Gene Smith. He was a police officer.
Mhm.
And the Smith brothers, they were twins. And he mentored Connie, he mentored Mike, and, kind of set us on the path to be the men that we became,
Right.
and the ball players we became.
Mhm.
But my brother Mike is I give him all the credit in the world because he schooled me. He taught me how to play the game. He taught me the importance of family. He taught me the importance of being a responsible young person. Um, my dad passed when I was 12. Our dad passed when I was 12. Mike was just getting ready to get drafted. It was the year he was going to get drafted.
Wow.
And he took over as head of household.
mhm.
Wow.
Mom became a widower, and all of a sudden, here we are. Here he is, a 20-year-old, rookie, 21-year-old rookie going into the NBA, and now he's the head of the house.
Right, right.
And here I am. I'm 12, 13 years old.
Right.
you know, getting ready to be 13. And so it was, you know, without Mike being there to take over the reins, and the fact that he had an NBA contract,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he was part of a championship team. He came out of a HBCU, Virginia Union.
Okay.
And part of that experience, me growing up with Mike, was his HBCU experience at Virginia Union.
Mm-hmm.
You know, early on, I was exposed to how important HBCUs were
Right.
for young African Americans seeking college educations and using basketball as a vehicle. Okay, HBCUs now have come back, so to speak, into view because of the opportunities that they
Right.
presented for us as student athletes.
Mhm. And
Okay.
and you know, if it was up to, you know, the powers that be, they would have, those the HBCUs probably would have, you know, downgraded themselves constantly to non-existence. But the
Mhm.
mere fact that people, you know, keep focused on it, they keep pushing it, they keep sharing it, you know, the historical information of their existence year after year. So now, but now people are starting to take root and saying,
Well,
hey, why not? You know,
I can tell you, without historically Black colleges and universities, a lot of our leaders, our civil rights leaders, I mean,
Absolutely.
there's
Absolutely.
the opportunity for African Americans to get a decent college education and to
yeah,
become certified and
yeah,
degree.
that's
Okay,
right.
so we can go in and take care of ourselves and our families.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And it's funny because you said earlier regarding, you know, health situations, you know, you got hurt, and you know that, you know, redirected your thinking to, you know, be more studious or whatever case may be. But a lot of factors happen to us as athletes that impact us, to drive us in the direction that we're going through our careers. Like you said, your brother, or the experiences of the your HBU schools, even though not attending one, the value that they brought, the knowledge that we understand about them, we learned that, you know. And
I mean, my first exposure to a Black fraternity and Black
Right.
schools
Mm-hmm.
were on the campus of Virginia Union when I
Right.
would go down and visit my brother.
Right.
Watching a college basketball game, the first college basketball games I ever attended were, you know, the historic battles of Virginia Union versus Norfolk State with Bobby Dandridge and Pee Wee Kirkland.
yeah,
Wow.
Winston-Salem, watching Earl the Pearl Monroe when he was in college versus Mike the Crusher Davis.
yeah,
So Earl would get 50, Mike would have 40. I mean,
Right.
it was just, it was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. And those guys are Hall of Famers now of the CIAA and the HBCUs, right? The ones I
Yeah.
mentioned
Yep.
went on to become famous NBA players
right, yeah.
and drive championships in the NBA and
Mhm.
become legends.
Yeah.
Legends.
And oddly enough, like that, there's a couple of friends that we have that, you know, are HSBU, you know, graduates, and what that has done, at least for us as like friendship wise, they turn out they're great men. They're great men. And you know, the narrative that we see all the time is, shut up and play basketball. No, 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 no. But it's like we all have turned into men of quality, you know, good fathers, good husbands, good citizens, you know, giving back, you know, not beating up our wives, not getting arrested, you know.
Yeah.
But good citizens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 And there's a
again,
level of
without that,
pride.
yeah.
Yeah, but there's so much pride associated with that, that, you know, it's kind of like, it's not patting yourself on the back. It's kind of like lighting a fire and saying, hey, I accomplished this, or we accomplished this, and don't write my narrative for me, because this is the true narrative of who I am. And it's a successful, you know, history, you know, and we have to be stewards of that, to make sure that people understand that we are of quality, you know.
You know, how many activists and civil rights fighters have come out of that era, have come out of HBCUs? And even though I didn't attend an HBCU, I can tell you that I support them.
Mm.
and I understand the culture, and I understand their need in America.
Right. Yep.
I mean, even today, as we look at the politics and we look at people like Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, where he's trying to remove our history
Yep.
from public schools.
Mm.
You know, I mean, it just, it's mind-boggling that
Right.
we're sitting here in May of 2023, and sometimes it feels like I'm back. It's May of 1970,
Mhm.
Yeah.
1960, 1969, 70. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easily. Yep. Yep. Yep.
we have to continue to support our young people in
Mm.
the communities and do whatever we can. And we have somehow, in some way, shape, and form, have to continue to support historically Black colleges and universities.
Mhm. And
And so,
it's more deeper rooted than that. It's not just supporting them, it's supporting the ideology of telling the truth about the historical things that happen in lifetime,
absolutely,
you know, and in real time. Tell
absolutely.
the truth. It's not, and I have a really, really hard psychological time trying to figure out what is it that you are so afraid of finding out that your great grandfather did something wrong. I don't understand why you think that it's not to be shared. And everyone should know or would know, even in a family dynamic, secrets destroy families. They
Yep.
destroy families. Now let's go bigger. Secrets can destroy a community. Secrets can destroy a nation. And
That's right.
I don't understand that because it's very easy to tell the truth about the Korean War, World War II, whatever the case may be. Everything has to be, handled with truth guiding it. And that means that we have to support those institutions that are doing right so that the truth is constantly being told as we fight that battle over there. If that makes sense.
Well, it does make sense. And
Yes.
so, to get back on track here, to answer your question, Mike really laid the groundwork, and a great example for me as a mentor, coach, and sibling and older brother. So we God for him, and we always wish him the best in his journey. Just to get back on track, and so, after my days at Michigan State, I was very fortunate to get drafted by my hometown New York Knicks,
Mm-hmm.
and my pro career was one of a journeyman of that time because there was no G League, there was no D League. I started in the Eastern League. Unfortunately, my rookie year, I had to compete against Clyde and Earl, and on that team they had Bill Bradley. They had
Mike Reardon.
they had the remnants of their championship team.
Right.
Okay, the '73 championships, they had the remnants of it.
Mhm.
Phil Jackson was still hanging on.
Nate Bowman.
By a thread. Okay.
Yeah.
And Red Holtzman didn't believe in rookies. He believed in rookies that were first and second round draft picks.
Right.
But being the seventh round draft pick, I'm pretty sure because Mel was on that team. And like I said, Larry Fogel was their first round pick that year when we got drafted.
Sure.
And I went into training camp and had one of I had a phenomenal training camp. In fact, the day I got cut, Earl came to me in the locker room. I'm sitting at my cubicle, and I'm just boo-hooing like a freshman, like a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Young fella," he said, "knock it off." He said, "You killed us today." He said, "You've been killing us the whole entire training camp."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He said, "There's going to be a place for you somewhere in pro basketball. Just don't give up."
Okay.
And, so the next year, of course, I continued to train. I went back to Michigan State to finish up, and I graduated in '70. That year, the Nets came into the NBA, and training up at St. John's University. Every afternoon, they'd have an open run at St. John's University. And what I do is I take the Interborough Parkway. I go get Ernie Dowse, And then Ernie lived in Flushing at the time. So I go get Ernie. We go to St. John's, and we'd be in St. John's playing against Doc, Henry, Bibby, the whole net team that won the ABA championship that year, right? And so we would be in there, and towards the end of the open run, Lou Seca came over and says, he says, you and Ernie played so well this summer. He says, the Nets don't have any draft picks. He says, I've been talking to Kevin Lockery about you. He's going to be here tomorrow. I'd like for you and Ernie to meet him. So we came up the next day and we met Kevin Lockery, and he invited Ernie and I to training camp.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that training camp, I played some tremendous basketball, and he signed it. I got signed by the Nets. So I played with the Nets a little bit that year. I got 10 games in. Mostly exhibition games, but they were games. I played against the Knicks again in the Garden, and played against Seattle Supersonics, and there were a couple of games there that we played. We played an exhibition game in Boston, and so I was up and down that year. And then the following year, or a couple of years later, in 1980, right before that, I was still playing, but I was also working. So it was a tough time in basketball, because if you weren't playing in the NBA, the only other option on the East Coast was the Eastern League.
Right.
And
if there was nothing else.
There was nothing else. And so, I made a couple of $100 on the weekend playing 2 games, in the Eastern League, and then I was back to work. And so that couldn't sustain me as a young man. And so that started my real professional career. And I was very fortunate enough to get for 2 corporations to hire me. The first one was IBM, and at that time, IBM was the Google of corporations. And then later on in 79, 80, I was hired by Exxon Mobil. Mm-hmm. And I became an account manager in Brooklyn and in Queens, managing mobile service stations in the 2 boroughs. And I had a tremendous career with Mobil. I spent 7 years selling gasoline, motor oil, and lubricants, and installing franchise mobile dealers into service stations.
Okay.
And you probably bought gas as you guys were coming up in Brooklyn. You probably bought gas from a number of my service stations.
Right.
There you go.
Sure.
And you never knew Pete Davis was the manager.
That's right.
I mean, I managed the entire, any mobile service station that you saw in Brooklyn off the Belt Parkway,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, Ridgewood, Bushwick, anywhere in Queens, Manhattan, York and 61st, 58th and 10th. Those were Pete Davis's service stations. Okay. I managed those.
This guy's got one heck of a memory, right? Unless he's naming streets.
I'm digging this, man. Yeah. Yeah.
And I must have managed a portfolio for ExxonMobil, probably a $300 million business.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Right.
And did it for 7 years and did it well. And in between that time, I was playing pro basketball.
Right.
Can you believe that? What I would do is I would work the entire 9 months, 10 months. I wouldn't take a day off. And then I would accumulate all of this sick time and all of this vacation time, and I would take it right as training camps would open up. So if you imagine, let's say a training camp in the NBA would open up October 15th. Well, I would be, I could stay on the roster for 60 days without even worrying about losing my job.
Right. I got you.
I could always come back and go to work.
Yep.
And so it was so funny because I developed a tremendous relationship with the late Bill Musselman. His son, Eric Musselman, is now the head coach at the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
And Bill and I were friends. He just appreciated who I was, how I was built, my journey. He was also the head coach at the University of Minnesota when I was at Michigan State. So Bill had watched my career the entire time as I was ascending from college basketball to pro basketball. He was doing the same thing.
Right.
He left college basketball as a very successful college basketball coach. and then he was able. At the time, the Eastern League had started to grow. The Western League started, and Bill was a head coach in the Western League of the Reno Bighorns. And as I was working, trying to figure out, whether I was going to play pro basketball or not, in the summers I would go to Los Angeles and play with different teams. Like one summer I played with the Milwaukee Bucks, and I played with what's his name? Gosh, who was the head coach at the time? Legendary coach. It'll come back to me. But anyhow, I would play with the Bucks. I played a couple of games in the summer league, 2 years with them. So on one of those summer trips, Bill saw me, right? And he was like, "Wow, Pete," he says, "Man, you're still playing." I was playing with the Bucks, and we won the LA Summer League that summer. And he signed me as a free agent. At the time, no, actually I was a free agent, and the Clippers had signed me. And the Clippers had just moved to San Diego. Okay, Gene Shue, my brother's ex-coach, had signed me. Okay, and so I was out there in that league, in that summer league, in that camp, and as they were getting ready to go into regular season, right before the regular season started, I got waived again. Went back to my job, but Bill Musselman had made the contact. He was scouting, to see who would get waived because the Western League was about to start. And again, he was the head coach of the Reno Bighorns. And so in between that transition, I signed a 6-month deal with them. And so that's how my career went in terms of how the NBA has evolved, the way it has grown.
Right.
Because now when you look at the NBA and everybody sees the G League and they say, "Wow, the G League, this is the feeder league to the NBA." Right? Because of the two-way contracts and things like that. Back in the day, we didn't have that.
Right,
so you
exactly.
had to play in the Eastern League or the CBA or the Western League. And so
go overseas.
Right, and I played in all of those leagues.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that pretty much was my journey as an NBA player. And once I finished playing basketball, I continued my career, like I said, with ExxonMobil, and then later after ExxonMobil, because I wanted to stay closer to sport, I went into the footwear business. And so that's what brings us full circle now. I spent over 30 years in the athletic footwear and apparel business industry. And currently I'm still in the footwear business. I've owned my own footwear company during that year. Yep. And I've worked for tremendous brands. Some of the names, Puma, Fila, Reebok, Skechers, and now I represent a company by the name of Steve Madden.
Okay, and I heard the name.
Steve Madden's a fashion resource in the footwear industry, mainly focusing on women's fashion shoes. We just started the division where we're going to be doing athletic footwear. It's mostly fashion athletic footwear. So we're a growing concern, publicly traded company, and I'm very, very, very happy, where I am in my life, married, to a beautiful lady I met out here in California. We have 2 beautiful kids, Peter II and Jasmine. And I was telling you a little bit about Jasmine and Peter, and I'm gonna wrap it up. Jasmine played 4 years at the University of Connecticut. She's a tremendous athlete. She's played tennis, basketball, and volleyball. She's a very well-rounded athlete, played in the Big East, and just got accepted into USC and will be representing USC for a COVID year to get her master's and playing her last season of volleyball.
Okay.
My son, Peter, just graduated from South Kent. South Kent is a school in Connecticut. One of the top prep schools in the country. In fact, they won the NEPSAC AAA championship this year, and Peter was named the captain of one of their teams and played very well. He's an outstanding player in the mold of the Davis family.
There you go.
There we go.
And so we wish him all the best. He's enrolling in August to the University of San Diego.
Okay.
And we wish him all the best in his journeys also. So that pretty much, brings us full circle, guys.
Yeah.
Yo,
Yeah.
that was a walk down memory lane and a history lesson.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes,
Without a doubt. Without a
that was
doubt.
nice. That was very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And how was the transition, to being out in California and your kids being somewhere else and still, in their educational level lives? How was that being away from them?
Well, I don't think it was a tough transition because Jasmine was a very heavily recruited athlete. She's a two-sport athlete. She won three championships in basketball, CIF here in Redondo. She played for Redondo Union High School, three basketball championships. Okay. She transitioned to volleyball. My wife was a dual sport athlete also. She played college basketball and college volleyball. My wife did. And so we kind of split up the responsibilities when it comes to our kids. I took the kids on early and gave them the really good fundamentals of their athletic background. She took Jasmine. I started Jasmine in tennis. Peter's always been a basketball player. Transitioning into middle school, Jasmine played both volleyball and basketball. Peter was just a basketball player, And then going into high school, same thing. And so she was recruited. Jasmine was recruited, a highly recruited basketball athlete and a volleyball athlete. She chose volleyball because her skill set. She's an extreme athlete. I mean, she's got a 39-inch vertical. That's just, she's just a stud. Okay,
Jumping higher than me, man. What's up with that?
And she's always been an honor roll, 4.0 student all the way through her career. She was all Big East, all academic team, all 4 years at UConn. So she's a high academic, when you talk about the makeup of an athlete, that's probably what you would want. A kid who is a high academic kid, a kid who is a multi-sport athlete and good at the elite level. At the elite level, every one of her sports, she was an elite tennis player. She was an elite volleyball player. She still is, and an elite basketball player. I'm talking about elite. So she's our pride and joy. Peter is a tremendous kid, high character kid, high academic kid, a very good basketball player. Unfortunately, in his journey, the pandemic came into play here.
Yes.
There was no basketball his junior year in the state or in the country, probably in the world. There was no sports here in the state of California. His junior year, which was a very important year in his recruiting. His sophomore year, he was being recruited by a number of D1 programs, including Michigan State, Arkansas, Harvard, Yale. I mean, he had some tremendous, and then because of the junior year, his recruitment kind of fell off. And then his senior year, he had a knee injury. So this is why he went to prep school. We sent him to prep school so he could get that pandemic year back.
Yeah. I mean, that's so he was out there. So he was out there playing against, I guess, St. Thomas More.
Correct.
That's in Connecticut. I almost went there myself.
Absolutely.
George Murray been trying to send me there, but
let me tell you something. St. Thomas, we almost sent Pete to St. Thomas More, but South Kent, I knew that coach there, Raphael Chillis, he's a former Division I head coach. He's been an assistant at some of the top Villanova, Connecticut. If you look at his resume and his relationships at the college levels and all levels, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, are tremendous. And so that's why I sent Peter to school there.
Right.
So he could get the tutelage of playing under and in a program run by a college coach. Right. So he can understand what the dynamics and the responsibilities would be. And he graduated at top of his class, okay, all A's. And of course, the scholarship that he won to attend the University of San Diego is not a basketball scholarship.
Oh, okay.
Peter's on a full academic scholarship.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. And
that's
so he'll play basketball. He's gonna play college basketball. The athletic department's just not gonna pay for it.
Right. Yep.
And that's the character, his character and his accomplishments academically speaks volumes, man,
Absolutely.
for the university. The university wants somebody in there like that. They want to tout him and use him as a poster child. You
My
know,
gosh, when we saw the financial package that they offered, I mean, he got into a number. So he got into the University of Oregon. He got into he got into Quinnipiac. He got into a number of other universities. Michigan State, my alma mater. He got into Michigan State. But when we looked at the financial packages, the offers,
Mm-hmm.
University of San Diego offered him over $225,000
Mm-hmm.
to come to school. That was better than an athletic scholarship.
Absolutely. Yep.
Dude, forget about an athletic scholarship.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Take
right.
the academic money
Mm-hmm.
and then go
That's
play basketball, because that doesn't define you.
Right.
And
And
so
what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Say no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So gentlemen, to wrap this up and to get a real picture of who Pete Davis is and my family,
Mm-hmm.
we believe in strong academics first. We believe in high character. My wife and I, we've worked hard at raising our kids and trying to mentor them and coach them and to give them a path where they have options, not only being athletes, because they are elite athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Their track record speaks for itself, but their academic pursuits. We always had the motto: it's not the 4-year plan, it's the 40-year plan.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's the plan. That's the plan we were on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's it.
And also to understand, to understand your options. You can have options and not have any understanding of it, and they'll bypass you because you don't know how to, to approach it and deal with it. But if you start understanding what your options are, you identify them right away and you know how to use them. And it sounds like they're in that realm, but that's because of the tutelage that's coming down from mom and dad.
That's right.
Without that, it's a choice.
And so that kind of wraps it up. I think I brought you right from the beginnings of Pete Davis growing up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York, to living in Los Angeles. How I got to Los Angeles again was through the basketball and footwear business.
Right.
I transitioned out here, and I've been out here over 30 years now.
Okay.
A lot of the natives here in Los Angeles think I'm from Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I correct them. So I'm a Brooklyn kid.
You're up here hanging out with one of my buddies, man. I don't know if you know this guy, Clark Burrell.
Clark Burrell. No, I haven't.
Biff? They call him Biff.
Biff.
He played for USC. He played in the backcourt with Gus Williams.
Oh, he did. He played with Gus. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he actually was living here, and we coached together. He moved back, but and he got drafted by the Celtics. But
I
he's
can
a good,
tell you,
good friend.
I go to a lot of USC games, volleyball and basketball, because my wife graduated from USC, and we have the biggest rivalry in here, boy, where you're talking about Michigan State and USC. It was Michigan State, USC, and UConn, and now it's Michigan State, USC, and USD, which is Peter's school, University of San Diego.
Yeah.
So now we got these 4 rivalries. We'll during football season and basketball season and volleyball season, we'll have 4 flags in our home.
Now, how many of these battles though are you losing though, Pete?
Oh boy, yeah. Hey, listen, every time I lose, I hear the USC fight song. My wife got it on her phone.
No, but I'm saying even if you win, you lose with your wife. I said even if you win the game, you still lose with your wife.
That's right. Absolutely. But it's a lot of fun. We're a very competitive family. We're a very loving family, and it's great just to have the opportunity and be this blessed, be able to enjoy this journey with our kids, to understand what it is to represent major universities on the major level. Okay. To have the opportunity to to matriculate at a school like USC or University of San Diego. I know what it was like to matriculate at Michigan State.
Mhm.
Even to this day, I'm a huge supporter. In fact, on Sunday, Tom Izzo was here visiting down in Newport Beach. We had a big alumni function, and Tom is a great dude, man. I could just tell you he's different.
Mhm.
He built different.
Right.
And I played against Tom. Tom was the starting point guard at Northern Michigan when I was at Michigan State.
Okay.
So we know each other very well.
Mhm.
We know each other from playing against each other, and we know each other because he recruited my son, and I've kept in touch through Gus Kanakis and through the great Michigan State years that we've had in football and basketball. I've always been a huge Michigan State supporter. I'm a Spartan. I wear my green and white on my sleeve. You know what I mean? And I don't think I would have changed anything.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you didn't wear the green and white to the show.
I got Michigan State all over this joint. In the back here, you'll see that. Back here is my freshman picture. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's right here. Our freshman team at Michigan State. And I've got all types of Michigan State stuff around the house. So it's it gets very competitive in here.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Eric and Les, I want to thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast today.
Yeah, Pete, you have to understand, in closing of all of this, that our intent is to share this information and to share the history of Brooklyn. And there is no way in the world that we were ever going to be able to get this off the ground without going to the guys that mentored us, that we sat and watched.
Yep.
And I didn't get an opportunity to mention about it, but I remember, because I know you played at the old Boys High Field basketball courts on Rutland Road in Brooklyn.
Oh yeah.
We used to watch y'all play, and I'm serious. We were little guys because we lived on Rutland Road.
Okay.
Grew up on Rutland Road, so we used to walk down there at night and watch those games. And you have no idea what we've seen and how you and players of your era have mentored us. And we had to find a way to incorporate the podcast by, touching base with the guys that led us first. And we're very, very grateful to have you on the show to share your experiences and your history so that the people will know who, Pete Davis is and the family, the Davis family, and the history of that as well. Because we're all about trying to, like I said, share information and history properly so that, people will know why we were what we were at that time. So it's like really grateful to have you here on the show. Anything you want to add to that, Les?
Oh, I just have one question for you, Pete, man. When you played in the Eastern League, who'd you play for?
I started with the Hazleton Bullets in Hazleton. But because I was a Knick draft choice, I became property of the Allentown Jets.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember Greg Jackson, Jocko, out of Brownsville. He played in that. He played for the Jets. There were not a lot of Brooklyn kids that played. I believe George Berry might have played with Allentown. He played with one of those.
Right.
One of those Eastern League teams. I don't remember which one. But because I was a property of the Knicks at the time, that was their affiliate team.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I played with the Scranton Miners for a minute.
Okay.
With Jim Bostic. When you said about making a couple $100 on the weekend, I started laughing. I said, "Yeah, that was me too."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jim. I mean, Big Jim. I love Big Jim. Jim.
First of all, guy.
Big Jim. They don't make him like him anymore. Right? Solid, man. And a great human being too.
Yes.
Would go out and compete and kick your butt. All right. And then be a gentleman, just a solid gentleman after. I just respect what he did as an athlete. Him and Charlie Chris. I mean, when we played against him and Charlie Chris, forget about it. That was a war.
Quality people, right? Quality people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. you know.
So any other questions I can answer?
No, we're pretty much, at the end of the show. And
Okay.
once again, like I said, Pete, it's really a pleasure to have
Yes,
you here
man.
on the show. It's a possibility that most likely maybe, but in the closing, part of the show, post production,
Yes.
Leslie and I might be, maybe we need to get Pete back in here again
I know.
because we got more. But we'll keep you abreast of what's going on. The show will be released probably in the next couple of days.
Okay.
And once again, I want to just really thank you for coming in and speaking with us today. And it was a pleasure to have you on the show.
My
Yeah.
pleasure, guys. My
My
pleasure.
brother, it's been a pleasure meeting you.